Sport Vitamins, episode 33. Last week, I was on the road with my team for the Italian Cup Final 8. Unfortunately, we lost in the semi-final to Milan. It was a great game, though. And now it's time to recover. And recovery is one of the main topics that we discussed with today's guest. Today's guest is none other than Tyler Lesher. Tyler, currently, he's the head athletic trainer for men's basketball at UCLA. Some of the topics that we covered with Tyler are what day-to-day life of an athletic trainer looks like, the importance of having a background as a strength coach when it comes to rehabbing the players, and loaded mobility. Another great episode, guys, so be ready to take a lot of notes. And without further ado, here is episode 33 of Sport Vitamins with Tyler Lesher. Tyler, welcome on the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on today. So usually we start asking our guests a little background.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of from all over the place. Born and raised in Wyoming. I originally got my associates in health sciences. And that's pretty much because I wanted to be a nursing student or a nurse. The thought of even leaving Wyoming, I was a small town kid, like the thought never even crossed my mind. So once I realized I didn't want to do nursing, I was taking sports med classes as a time fulfillment so I could stay full time to complete my scholarship. After I completed that, I actually thought I was an athletic trainer. I was like, sweet, like I can just start working. And they were like, no, you got to go get certified. Laid out a bunch of schools where I could go get my education at, and ended up picking New Mexico State because I had some family down there. So I went south and hung out there for 3 years, learned a lot, met a lot of my best friends now. Graduated with my bachelor's there, moved to California, actually, Northern California, went to Chico State for a couple of years and got my master's. And that was when I also got like my CSCS, my PES, and my CES, and really kind of started connecting the dots between, athletic training, strength and conditioning, and how to use them both as a foundation, really. From there, I immediately went to the Cavaliers, started working as a intern for them, which consisted of me being the head strength and conditioning coach and the assistant athletic trainer for the G League team, or at the time it was the D League. And that was the Canton Charge. Had a great time there, an absolute invaluable experience, because at the time I had never used any of my background as a strength coach, and I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. So it was a perfect chance for me to learn on the fly. It was a great sink or swim moment, and then also be able to implement some athletic training things that I was doing. From there, that was just a 1-year internship. Went to the Charlotte Hornets, became head strength coach and head athletic trainer for their G League team. And, I was there for 3-4 years, three seasons. And then just kind of had to make the jump into the college world. I wanted, G League doesn't pay that well, unfortunately, as awesome as it was. I had to make the jump, and FAU opened up, a great chance to work with the men's basketball team there. Incredible staff. They recruited the hell out of me. The basketball team or the basketball coaches there were absolutely incredible. I went there for 9 months, and honestly, I thought I was going to stay there for a long time. And then UCLA opened up, and it was very hard not to go after a blue blood like UCLA, and the rest has been history since then. So that's how I made it to UCLA.
Great. Tyler, how important was to have a background as a strength coach, and also how hard it was to wear some different hats in a professional organization?
So strength and conditioning, I would say I use about 90% of strength and conditioning as my foundation for athletic training. When it comes to rehabs, tissue load, management, exercises, exercise selection, all the different components of strength and conditioning, that has become my foundation for how I rehab my guys. It's been I don't know like what a great word for like it. I mean, it's been so crucial to my development, my growth, how I get these guys to move in a certain pattern, functional pattern, movement pattern type. Like it's all based on strength and conditioning and movement theories versus more like athletic training, which is probably, I'd say, like a little more conservative, right? They're like, when you're going through athletic training school, they're still teaching, the Price method: protect, rest, ice, compression, elevation. And I really don't use those a lot at all anymore. I always say that like my education I got in school, my professional education was, the day I started with the Cavs. I walked in there and that's really when I realized, all right, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I had to live with like in the training room, in the weight room, asking, the strength coach and athletic trainers, like, what are you doing here? What are you doing there? Guys like Mike Mancias, who is LeBron's athletic trainer. He was great. He was, always answering my questions, had me help him. It was huge for my development. And then how hard was it to wear those two hats? I mean, you really learn how to combine the two. What you realize is you start spending less time doing rehabs and less time doing like true treatments, because you learn how to treat everything in the weight room. If you're getting these guys, instead of going like, hey, we got to rest this injury, it's instead like, hey, let's get activated, let's get moving, let's open up the joint spaces by this exercise selection, whatever it might be. So initially it was hard because it was a big hurdle to learn, but once I had it, I mean, now, like I said, that's the crutch of my a lot of my philosophies and how I do things now. So invaluable experience. I mean, can't explain how much it helped me.
Awesome. Tyler, here in Europe, we don't have athletic trainers. So we don't have nothing in between physiotherapists and strength coaches. Can you please tell us something about the day-to-day life of an athletic trainer and what you actually do, and what are the main assessments that you guys do with your athletes?
Yeah, so you guys have the physios and then you got strength coaches, pretty much, right?
Exactly.
I would love to say that an athletic trainer is a perfect blend of the two, where we're coming in and we're really worried about the overall management of each athlete's health profile. Okay. So my focus is with these guys is, come in, like, let's just do like a basic assessment, right? I'm going to go from their big toe all the way up and I'm going to assess their motor patterns and, how much their extension they have, flexion they have, before I even put them on like an FMS or have them do other kind of, functional movements or functional assessments. They are, I'm trying to think, like, athletic trainers are the best for managing cases, and you have to manage like various aspects, right? Because you're the person who manages the athletes, manages the coaches, manages the doctors, manages, media, whatever. Like, you have to be strategic in how you go about things to, maybe the player doesn't need to know XYZ from the coach. Maybe the coach doesn't need to know everything that the player is saying, or, definitely the media doesn't need to know any of it. You become like a perfect like manager of all these different situations. When I come in, I first make coffee. Second thing is I have my long-term rehabs come in and we just immediately start getting after it, immediately check swelling, see how much swelling they have, how much functional movement they have, how much range of motion they have. And then from there, I'll start detailing out certain exercises based on where they're at in the program. After that, some of the guys that are playing start trickling in. And how I kind of break those guys up is, the guys that are playing, they're really just like beat up, right? Like bang, bang, bruises, stuff from the games, practices. It's like, all right, like, I need to treat you like right now, get you ready for this practice, whatever it might be. And then usually it's treatments, tape, practice. Obviously practice, it's a lot of just watching, making sure nothing bad happens, court safety, player safety, and then immediately following practice, it's just treatments all over again. And my treatments pre-practice are a lot of activations, movements, mobilities, getting their muscles really warmed up and stuff like that, but in a certain way that is functional. Not so much just like coming in and going here, get in the hot tub so you can warm up, or go hop on the bike for 5 minutes, but like get in a 90-90 position, like a hip position, go through some different rotations, go through what I call a mob flow, all these different like movements to help get your body going. That's a big piece of my treatments. And then post-practice treatments is usually kind of more of that cool down. All right, like let's check your tissue, how it's feeling. Like, what do we need to do to, make sure you have that nice, loose, dense tissue and you're not just, knotted up. Sometimes that's through movement. A lot of times it's just through like soft tissue releases and different, grass and cupping, anything like that. Dry needles. I'm a big dry needle guy. So really that's like the big pieces of it. Like we are consistently dealing with various components, like for instance, I have like my boss is the director of sports medicine for UCLA. So I got to report to him. I got to report to the coaching staff. I got to work well with the strength coach, our dietitian. You have to become like, you're a great manager. That's really what athletic trainer is you're perfect at, or I shouldn't say perfect, but you get really good at managing all these different people to make sure that the betterment of the athlete is always taken care of.
Nice. Do you do a lot of loaded mobility during the?
I love loaded mobility. I think loaded mobility might be one of the greatest things ever thought of. I don't know who invented it, who thought of it, who did whatever with it. I love it. I used to do it a lot. I don't do so much over here anymore because I'm, not in charge of strictly warming up the guys. But I am a big fan of, using a kettlebell to get moving, using an aqua bag or water bag to work on stability, different exercises to get warmed up. I am all for it. I think that loaded mobility is the best way to get flexible. I think that's a thing that a lot of people need to realize is, the days of static stretching are long gone. And athletes hate that, right? Because they want to just go hop on the table and say, hey, stretch me, fix me, make me feel good. And that's not how you get flexible. The reality of it is, hey, get in a deep squat or a windmill position with a kettlebell and like, let's let gravity sit there and do its thing. Can you move in deep ranges of motion and like use FRC like principles, right? Under extreme weights and then be able to move with it. And I think that's really where players get the best bang for their buck. I think that strength coaches and athletic trainers can really get a lot out of doing that, more so than just, hey, like, I'm going to stretch you for the next 15 minutes. And, it's the placebo effect at that point, right? So at least in my opinion, there's not a lot of research out that shows that passive stretch or static stretching does a lot anymore. So not a big stretch guy.
Yeah, I love it. I like to take my athletes to the weight room before games and some loaded mobility. And yeah, I love it. Just make a lot of sense to me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, get them in. Like it doesn't have to be more than 15-20 minutes, right? Like you bring them in, have them rep out, or I usually did like a couple of hip mobility movements. So it's going to be like the 90-90s rotation, windmills, something like that. And then let's go trap bar deadlift. Let's go, 2 sets of 3 or even 3 sets of 2. Just get that neuromuscular system activated, maybe some push press, high rep, like low back pull with some rotation stuff, beat it, something like that. It only takes 15-20 minutes, but man, these guys come out firing, versus just doing like these static stretches. It's just, the guys feel it. That's all that matters, right? Is how they feel.
Absolutely. How important is stability for you?
Stability?
Yep.
I mean, stability and mobility are the constant battle, right? Personally, I think that you can be highly mobile and very stable at the same time. And I think that's where, functional range of conditioning really comes into play. Can you be, and this is, I heard this from one of my mentors, Pal Bernhardt, but can you be strong, but then can you be strong in all positions? So that being said, like, can you get into the positions needed for the game, but then be stable throughout those positions, right? So that's kind of where it all comes in. Like, used to be like, all right, like, hey, like the more mobility they have, the less stable you're going to be. I don't think so. Like, I think that you can sit there and get in the deep ranges of motion, own the positions, and be able to control them, while also being mobile, right? I think that that's a huge piece. And I think that's what the future of, or a piece of the future for like strengthening and conditioning and athletic training has got to be, is forcing guys to get into those end ranges of motion and holding those positions, and just training in them, because that's when you're going to get a lot of like that capsular movement. And you're just going to build overall strength and stability as you become mobile. And there's, you can get into these positions, just say a deep squat or Cossack squat, and, move through different, movements throughout them. And that's really where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. I love that. So stability and mobility, they're both great. I think that, when I think of stability, if you have a guy doing like a step up, right? It's my version of stability is when they're in that top position and they're pushing down and their knees up. Are you pushing your foot down to keep your upper body stable, right? To create a global stability, not so much as I'm just stepping here and lifting my knee up. That's not stable. Stable is I am using my full body to push down, to lift myself up, and I am strong at that top position. That's kind of my version of stability versus, I guess what other people think of, I suppose.
I like it. I like it a lot. Tyler, let's talk a little bit about recovery strategies. What are the main recovery strategies that you guys use over there? And how do you guys apply them during the season?
So each guy is different. What I've done in the last, pretty much since I've been here, is just really talk to each guy and go like, all right, like in the past, what's worked best for you? Is it just like, you just like to get the hell out of here following a hard practice or hard game and go nap? Is it, does ice bath work best? Is it contrast? A lot of these guys are starting to learn, I like to do more movement stuff post practice. That's when their muscles are primed up, their fascia's nice and loose and dense. And that's really where you can get the most out of different movements, right? Because that's when they're most activated. So I'm not a big ice guy. I think that if people are gonna ice, go get in the ice bath and get in up to here, not just go in like, up to your hips and sit there and yell 15 minutes like most players do. I think that some of the guys like doing that. I have one player that loves contrast. I know that, his body reacts really well to contrast baths, just going 3-2, 3-2, 3-2. In the future, and this is something I want to build to, I would love to get like an infrared sauna. I think that that's the future for recovery, full spectrum near infrared sauna. I think the guys can recover quicker, or incredibly well with that. I will say, I think the best version of recovery, if we're cutting out sleep and nutrition, obviously, but is the next day getting up and getting your body active, not sleeping in until 10 a.m., not like even just like waking up at 8 and laying in a hotel bed for 2 hours, but get up, get on a bike for 5 minutes and just sit there and coast, get a mini band, put it around your feet, go through a 5-minute activation series. That's got to be one of the best things a person can do for their body, especially following a hard practice, hard game, sitting on a bus, whatever it might be. when these guys are sore and they're struggling, it's because their body's tight. It's instead of worried about being tight, like let's activate ourselves. Let's get up, let's get that blood flowing. And that's where we're gonna excel. And like, you're gonna see recovery just I guess minimized because they're recovering so much better from that. So that's at UCLA, we're not doing anything groundbreaking right now as far as like in the world's of recovery. But I think the next day or the following day of implementing, some kind of morning activation is huge for recovery.
Would you recommend that morning activation also on a day off?
Absolutely. Because usually that day off is going to come after like either a back to back or, for us, it's going to be on a Sunday. So we're playing on Saturdays. It's get up and get your body moving. And those are the days where like, active recovery comes into play, right? Go for a walk, ride a bike, get on a hike, go do hot yoga, anything like that. That's just what you want to recommend as much as possible. Do players always do that? No, but if they're more apt to doing like a 15-minute recovery or excuse me, activation, mini band routine, something like that, like let's push for it.
Do you think it's better to give the player his favorite recovery modality every single day, or it's better to save it for important moments during the season?
That one. I think that everything has a dose response. And, if you sit there and you norma tech every single day, if you game ready every single day, your body's going to have eventually that dose response is going to get less and less and less and less versus, you spend all the preseason and all of, just say the beginning season, when your body's feeling good, you don't need those recovery strategies, right? Let's save those for, like you said, like, we're in the middle of the season, we're beat up and we need it. Now Normatec, now go get in the cold tub. That's when you're going to get huge bangs for your buck. Like your body's going to have a much higher dose response and it's going to utilize it much more versus, all right, like we're just going to Normatec every day for 20 minutes. Like your body knows to expect that. It's got to adapt with it versus not using it. Let's save it for when we need it. March Madness is coming up. All right, let's throw everything at the wall. That's why I think about recovery in that aspect. But the things that got to be controlled, obviously, sleep and nutrition are by far the most important. Even doing things like grounding, earthing, going outside, getting sunlight. I'm all for pushing environmental recovery strategies as a form of true recovery. So those are all important as well.
And I know that you are also big on gut health.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us something about it?
Think of it this way. If your body is, let's just say, if your body's veins and arteries are gas lines, okay, and you have a fire going on in your ankle, say past injury, something like that, you go out, eat, drink, highly processed food and something toxic, alcohol, whatever it might be, and you blow your gut up, all that toxic processed chemicals, toxicity, all that goes straight into your bloodstream. And it's like lighting a match in those gas lines that all lead directly to the fire. Okay. So when you have guys that come in and are really, you're asking like, hey, like we didn't do anything last night. Like, why are you so sore? Why is your ankle much more swollen or your knee much more swollen than it's ever been before? Right. That's a perfect time to like go, hey, let's address your gut health. Like, what'd you eat last night? How much sleep did you have? Okay. Did you go out till 2 a.m. last night partying and, were you out drinking? Were you doing, did you go eat something highly inflammatory, fast food in the middle of the night as your recovery? Any of those things. So you can start assessing those various pieces and going, all right, like all of a sudden this gut health is way more important than just going, oh, I ate good food. Like that's not the reality, like what Hippocrates said it, like let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food. It's that simple. So we can heal ourselves from the inside out. And that's where a lot of athletes, athletic trainers, and people of the modern day get away from. We have to heal ourselves from the inside out versus the outside in. We're too busy focused on what's the next latest and greatest, coolest modality. Give me a gun that's going to sit here and vibrate on my thigh because it feels good. The reality of it is our bodies have a general level of systemic inflammation. You have to address that first, or else that inflammatory response is just going to be consistently running throughout your body. That it's an immune response, and you have to address that through addressing one, your gut lining, your gut health, making sure that everything is checked off from, making, the reality of it is you have to have the right bacteria within your gut system that's going to produce, so that when you eat like fiber, you're going to produce butyrate. That's how you're going to end up getting more muscular health, more fascial health. It's starting to go on a tangent. Just we can just clip it all and just say gut health is more important for improving or from healing from the inside out versus the outside in. And that's where I think the focus for health professionals needs to go, right? Even from like a medical standpoint, we're the first people to say, here's a pill, take this pill. Instead of here, take this pill, how about let's focus on addressing the food that we eat naturally. Like, should you fast for excessive long time? Should we just remove certain foods? Should we add different foods? There's so many different options and varieties, but let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food. It's that simple.
And how do you go about educating your athletes on this aspect?
It's tough educating them because a lot of times, one, either they don't want to hear it, or two, they've been told something very different throughout their life, and they just immediately associate, you with being wrong. But I'm a firm believer of, unless you can educate or teach something like you're like you're talking to like a third grader or something like that, then you probably shouldn't be trying to educate them, or some aspect of that. So I really try and dumb it down as much as I can to go, hey guys, like let's break down the actual nutritional response, and it just comes down to like one-on-one education, looping in the dietitian or nutritionist, and having them, obviously they're going to be the more focal person for that piece, but just letting them understand the benefits of what good foods actually do for you versus the highly inflammatory toxic foods. And then it's just like I'll break it down like with one of my athletes. So we'll go out to eat or something, and he'll get the sniffles, right? We've all done this. You've all gone out to eat and you start sniffling like afterwards, and your nose starts running. And I just tell him like, well, why do you think that is? They're like, I don't know, because it's cold out or something. It's like, no, it's because you ate something that caused a histamine release in your body. You had a food sensitivity or a very minor food allergy that caused a histamine response, which is inflammatory response that causes that. It could be something spicy. It could be tomatoes. It could be green peppers. It could be any of the, whatever. It could have been something on the chicken. What what I'm saying? But it's going to cause a histamine release. And that's where I think it's so important to like really take a deep dive into each player's gut health and what their food sensitivities are, what they're allergic to, because that's where you can start minimizing that inflammatory level from the inside out a lot. And it's just a different version of like immune centric dieting. And I think that's going to be a big focus in the next 10 years, is instead of eating for, I need so many fats, carbs, proteins. It's, I need to eat this because my immune system responds well to these foods. I know that my inflammatory levels are going to be very low, which means that my productivity and my recovery is going to be much higher and beneficial than had I eaten those foods. At the end of the day, it's you are what you eat.
Absolutely. It's a very, very interesting topic. And this last question take us to the last chapter of this conversation. I want to talk with you a little bit about communication. So how important it is to have a good communication with your athlete, and how hard it is to obtain their buy-in?
Communication is by far, and this doesn't just like conclude with athletes. This goes beyond athletes, with your strength coach, with your dietitian, your coaches, your boss, your loved ones, friends, whoever it might be. Communication is by far the most critical piece to any relationship, right? You cannot let communication fall by the wayside when it comes, especially comes to the athletes, because you have to have the players' trust more than anything, right? They have to have the ability to trust you above and beyond, anybody. You're the person that's going to be there to take care of them, right? They are trusting their health within you. So it starts off by having a solid communication strategy. And they have to know that you care at the end of the day. So for me, I mean, I try and be the same person every single day with my athletes. They come in, I try and be energetic, happy go lucky. Like, I don't, even if I'm having a bad, shitty day, it doesn't matter. Like, I try and keep that, same consistent me every single day. And, you get to know these guys through just ample amounts of one-on-one time, and you form the different connections and relationships with your players and your staff and whoever that are just crucial. And it's just having no ego, being vulnerable, talking to them about their wants, needs, talking about yours. There's nothing wrong with like opening up about yourself to the athletes, or the people you work with. And that's where you're going to form these connections, and those long-term relationships that, the athlete and athletic trainer really strive for. And, same thing like strength coach and athlete, like I always say that the athletic training room it might as well just be the barbershop where guys come in. It's like, hey, like you got issues, like let's air them out, and now that I'm 32, I'm a little bit older than the athletes that I used to deal with. It's like I can kind of give some life lesson and expertise type stuff, but it's all open communication. Like I tell my guys, like, you got something to say it here. Let's dive into whatever you want. Like we had kind of have a running thing, like every night when we're on the road, and we're doing treatments, we'll just bring up like a random topic, and I'll educate them about there. It could be like a conspiracy theory, and we'll just like take a deep dive into it. But it creates a community and a laughter and, a fun response. And overall, that's how you generate the buy-in with these guys, right? Is they know you care. They know you're, everybody's smart. Everybody go read a book and like, there's plenty of athletic trainers out there that can do what I do. But like, can you relay to the guys, right? And kind of be one of them and be with them and really overall, like bring it all together so that when something goes wrong, you have a relationship with the player that they do trust you. When a player gets hit in the head and they have a concussion, you know them well enough to know that something's wrong. You can just see it, and it's almost like that paternal feeling of going like, man, like, I don't feel comfortable with you being out here. I can tell something's wrong. You're not being yourself, versus being removed and drawn from the situation and, kind of taking a guessing game, right? Um, I never want to do that. I want to have that relationship with my athlete that if something goes wrong with them, that I have their trust and their commitment, or, that they'll come to me with any issue. Um, and I can help them in any way possible. So, communication is the foundation of it. But that's, you know, it's everything. You read any leadership book or any self-help book, anything like those, right? They're always talking about you just have to communicate. Here's 10 effective strategies of communicating. And that's, looking into their eyes, having, all these different factors of, open communication. That's the key to it. So just
Yeah,
talk more.
it's absolutely crucial, especially because athletic trainers, physiotherapists, and also strength coaches are the staff members that spend the highest amount of time with the athletes. So
Yeah. Then that's what, like, people don't realize. And, like, I tell them, like, guys, like, I'm around you more than your own family. I'm around you more than my own family. My fiance lives 3,000 miles away. Like, you guys are like my kids right now. Like, I'm here hanging out with you guys, shooting the shit, watching the games. Like, we're talking about, Pokemon game that just came out on the Switch, and just laughing and joking. It's like, you're my guys. But you want to have those relationships and talks with them, because, again, you just want them to know that you care, and I want them to know that they care. Or I want to know that they care. Because a big piece of that is, like, if you don't care about what you're doing to your body, why would I? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm focused on this body. Like, I'm trying to help you out, but if you don't care, then I'm not going to care. So you got to communicate through that and be like, here's why you should care. Here's the different reasons they're going to help you care more. When all of a sudden you're, drafted 58th in the league, and you get shuttled over to the G League, and then 2 years later you're playing in Lithuania or something like that for $10,000, and your knee swells up, you should probably, like, find different strategies, because nobody there is going to be there to help you. You're going to have to figure it out yourself. So, you just have to build those relationships up and tell them, like, hey, like, here's different strategies that you can do. Like, let's look at food. Let's look at hydration status, your sleep, these different movement patterns, whatever it might be to help benefit these guys for the long term.
Yeah, great answer. And Tyler, how important it is to have also an open communication with the coaching staff, and how do you deliver some messages? For example, if there is an issue with an injury, or if there is an issue with an athlete.
It's all being 100% open and honest, and just giving pure facts. Like, there cannot be anything subjective. It all has to be objective data of, this player has, X amount of range of motion compared to the other. He has this much of a strength deficit compared to the other. He is performing at, he has this many symptoms on a concussion score. That's the best way to give coaches information, because everybody's going to have their own subjective response towards a different athlete, especially, like, based on their past, right? Like, say they have a history of sitting out, and, coach thinks they're soft or whatever, or versus a guy who, is just beat up, bruised, whatever, and still goes out there and, busts his ass every practice, every game. When I go to my coaching staff, I try and be as objective as possible. Hey, this is exactly what I'm seeing. And that way, one, it removes you from the situation of, well, you said this, it's nothing like that. It's just, here is the exact data of what I'm seeing of a special test, a movement score, functional assessment, whatever it might be. That way, there is no, like, pointing fingers of he said, she said, anything. It's just, here is what the data shows. And that's got to be, like, one of the biggest pieces to it, right? Is just being objective. Having that open line with your coach is obviously huge. As soon as we get off this, I got to call my coach. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first got here, when I first came to UCLA, like my coach, he's I've never seen anyone coach like him. Like he's incredible. Like he's not afraid to yell at the guys and get after them, and he gets a response from them that shows on the court. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're ranked number 3 right now, and hopefully projected to win this whole thing, because he knows how to get these guys to play their best that they can. And I absolutely love it. And now that I'm starting to build a relationship with him, I'm starting to find like different things that him and I are a lot alike on. And so it helps me, communicate with him, because we're starting to get that rapport and trust with each other that, that he can trust me with his athletes, and, everything that he says, kind of like looping it back what we said earlier, he might say something that the athlete doesn't need to hear. Right. And that's going to be confidential with me. And, I'm going to go out there and get the athlete back as to the best of my ability and the best of their ability. So it's all about just being open and direct. Don't beat around the bush. Just say, hey, this is what I saw. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm doing about it. And this is, the whole like subjective piece is, and this is what I hate doing, is always the how long are they going to be out, right? Because that's the only thing coaches care about, right? How long is he going to be out? And I don't like putting timelines on things, because you never know, right? Concussion, it could be 5 days, it could be 2 months. MCL sprain could be 3 weeks, could be eight weeks. And you just never want to get in that position. Like, well, you said it was only going to be a 3-week deal, and then next thing you know, you're 6 weeks in. That's not the best. So I just tell them, I was like, look, like we're going to handle this the best we can. It's going to be a day-to-day rehab, and we'll progress them from there.
Right. Great. Tyler, it's been a great episode so far. Usually we finish off with 3 rapid fire questions.
Hit me.
All right. First one. What's your favorite sport?
Golf.
Golf. Great.
With a close second to basketball. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Golf is better for me to play. Basketball is better for me to watch.
Nice. Second one. What's your favorite book?
Oof. Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Anything by Malcolm Gladwell is incredible. But I will say, I'm a big audiobooks guy. Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey was incredible. Highly recommend that. Just the best guy book out there.
Yeah, both are highly recommended. I love them. Last one. Your favorite loaded mobility exercise?
Man, I'm a big fan of a half kneeling windmill with kettlebell over your head, or a full body windmill, again, holding a kettlebell. And the reason why is, especially for basketball players, is T-spine rotation is often highly neglected. Everybody talks about rotation, but they're talking about rotation from the hips versus true T-spine rotation. I think when you look at the thoracolumbar fascia, right, and how that comes up, and players are so restricted because all we do is hammer posterior chain exercise movements, that they become very rigid. So I love the ability of maintaining that lower body position, rotating, and then rotating through different planes through that, all while maintaining a stability component all the way through, if that makes sense. So I think that it helps open up the hips, which are then going to open up the hamstrings, quads, and just really work on full body mobility versus, just getting into a deep squat or something like that. But I'm a big fan of a windmill, half kneeling windmill for really all of those. But that's probably my favorite loaded mobility exercise.
Nice. Tyler, if some of our listeners would like to reach out to you, where can they find you?
I'm most active on Instagram. I just started a TikTok and I have all of 20 followers. So if you if you got the plug for that, but no, Dr. T Lesh 15 um, is my handle pretty much on everything. But yeah, it's just dr.tlesh15, and they can reach out whenever. Like I said, I'm pretty active on Instagram, so they can always reach out and I'll usually respond. If I don't respond immediately, it's usually because we're on, prepping for games or something like that. But reach out whenever. I'm always around.
Yeah, Tyler, I really appreciate it. This was awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
And it's a wrap on episode 33 of Sport Vitamins. Another great episode. I'm sure that you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to share it on your social media, and remember that you can find Sport Vitamins on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, guys, I'm out.